Hey guys, welcome back to Popverse. Today we're recapping episode 8 of Heavenly Ever After. A truly emotional ride packed with regrets, rebirths, confessions, and a twist that reveals long-buried secrets. If you haven't watched the earlier episodes, the links are in the description. Go check those out first. The episode opens at a church, where Somya is praying to God. With guilt heavy in her voice, she tells the pastor that she's committed a sin, something serious. Will God forgive me? She asks. The pastor replies gently, if your apology is sincere, forgiveness is always possible. But then he asks, what sin did you commit? Cut to Yesu, who is home cooking Nagjun's favorite meal, hoping to reconnect. But Nagjun doesn't even touch the food. He's still distant, lost in his thoughts. Meanwhile, Somya sits alone in her room, staring at her hands, clearly replaying what happened at the cliff where she attacked the man. And Nagjun stopped her just in time. Outside, the pastor reflects as well. Yesu shows up and finds him watching the horizon. She asks what he's doing, and he responds, this place belonged to Mandu, but he's been reborn now. Yesu asks if he misses Mandu. The pastor denies it at first, but clearly feels something. Inside, as he reads his book, Yesu keeps interrupting and mentioning her husband. The pastor finally asks, did you two fight? Yesu says no. Later, she goes to grab something to eat and finds an old pot that's been left unattended and now gone bad. She jokes, no worries, we'll turn it into wine. Meanwhile on Earth, Nagjun is shown observing something, then returns to heaven to tell Somya he went looking for the man she saw, but couldn't find him. Somya turns to him and asks, do you think I'm a bad person? He doesn't have an answer, only says they'll have to figure it out together. Somya recalls how Nagjun saved her before she fell into hell, but she never got to thank him. So she thanks him now, but then adds, if something happens to me again, don't save me. That night, Yesu stands outside, waiting for Nagjun. When he finally arrives with Somya, Yesu questions him, where were you? You're late. Nagjun stays silent. She brings up his mother, but he cuts her off. Let's not talk about it. The next morning, Nagjun is getting ready for work. Somya hands him his watch before they leave together. They bump into Young, who watches them closely, and later comments to Hisik that the two seemed really close. Hisik, however, couldn't care less. On the subway to Earth, strangers stare at Somya. Nagjun reassures her, don't be scared. These are just my co-workers. Somya expresses confusion. She doesn't have a watch like Nagjun, yet she was able to touch someone on Earth. How? Nagjun suggests maybe her emotions are just powerful. Back on Earth, Somya again tries to touch a toy and a child. At first, she can't, but then Nagjun gently places his hand on hers, and suddenly she can. She hands the toy to the child and even pats his head. But it turns out it only worked because Nagjun was touching her, and he has the special watch. Somya begins to cry. Elsewhere, Yesu and the pastor are back at winemaking. She playfully offers him a taste, but he refuses. I'm a pastor, I can't. She tries it herself, and ends up drinking several glasses. Completely drunk, she passes out on the spot. Somya opens up to Nagjun again, saying that when she touched the child, it felt like her heart was shattering. Meanwhile, the director feels something ominous. Someone is coming. And of course, it's Young. She storms into his room, blasts music, starts dancing, calls him sweetie, and grabs him. The director panics. This is not the peaceful afterlife he signed up for. Back with Yesu, she wakes up to find the pastor missing. Barker the dog is barking like crazy. She rushes out and finds the pastor drunk and riding an imaginary bicycle. She yells at him to stop. There's no bicycle, but he insists. I never had one as a kid, but I always wanted to ride. He asks her to hop on. She does, and together they sing and scream like kids. That's when a Heaven employee arrives. He gently explains they're being too loud and must be reported. Yesu protests, but we didn't do anything wrong. He agrees, but rules are rules. Nagjun then shows up and escorts a wobbly, drunk Yesu home. At home, Yesu tells him about the hardships she faced with his mother, how she would cook for everyone but only get one small serving. Nagjun says, "You're my miserable wife." They share a quiet moment. The next morning, they try to cook a hangover dish for Yesu but fail miserably. She ends up doing it herself. Then she asks, "When is your mom coming back? I want to talk to her, to be better with her." But Nagjun replies, "She's not coming back. She's gone. Forever." Yesu panics. "Why did you let her go?" "I didn't even get to call her mother." She runs out and eventually finds Jongwi, Nagjun's mom, who is now selling off her belongings. Yesu asks why. Jongwi reveals she signed up for Rebirth and hasn't even told Nagjun yet. She says, "Are you afraid I'll move back into your house?" Yesu says no. Elsewhere, the director has summoned the pastor and is locking Young in a room. She screams, but he mutes her. He tells the pastor, "You've been spending time with Yesu. Are you happy?" The pastor nods. The director reminds him, "Remember when I told you happiness makes things harder?" The pastor nods again, silently. Back on Earth, Somya is holding Nagjun's hand, touching Objects, and asking what would make him happy. He replies, "I just want your memories to come back." Suddenly, they see a man nearby. Somya feels something. Could it be him? They back away. Somya starts picking flowers and makes 2 rings. One for herself, one for Nagjun. "It's a gift," she says, and places it on his finger. Meanwhile, Yesu is waiting for the pastor and asks how he's doing. He says he's fine, but acts strangely. She leaves. He later finds a note she left, reminding him to eat on time. That night, Yesu tells Nagjun about his mother's rebirth decision. Somya overhears. Young appears and asks, "Are they fighting?" Somya denies it. "Then why are you staring at them?" Young snaps. Nagjun sits in bed, troubled. It's not like she's dying, but she's being reborn. "And I'm worried," he says. Yesu comforts him, feeds him, and reassures him. Somya sees them through the door. Her face falls. She walks away. In a return to the opening church scene, Somya finally confesses to the pastor, "I developed feelings for a man. I shouldn't have." We now know she meant Nagjun. The next day, Nagjun and Yesu dress up and head to the Heaven Center for the rebirth ceremony. The director gives a speech. Jongwi steps onto the stage, preparing for rebirth. But something goes wrong. Nagjun rushes up and sees. Her assigned destination is poverty. He objects, creating a scene. That night, Yesu asks Nagjun, "What if she doesn't recognize you?" He doesn't respond. When Yesu arrives home, she finds a flower in Nagjun's pocket. It's from Somya's flower ring. Flashbacks confirm it. This was the flower Somya had dropped. She begins to suspect something. In the final scene, Nagjun arrives on Earth. A man recognizes him and says, "You saved me that day. Someone was strangling me, but you saved me." He introduces himself, Imjaku. I'm a detective. That name shocks Nagjun. Behind him, Somya stands silently watching. The 3 of them are now intertwined by fate, and everything is about to change. End of episode 8. We'll be back with episode 9 on Sunday. Don't forget to subscribe and see you soon.